guys, welcome in! Today we're going to be doing a quick little story review of honkaistarrail 3.5's main story quest that we finished playing last week. And yeah, I'm going to try to be more concise and a bit, make this a little bit shorter than some of my normal story reviews since I do tend to yap a lot. But yeah, overall thoughts of honkaistarrail 3.5 story was I thought it was a pretty solid intro patch. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was a good introduction to the next part of the story. There were lots of improvements in the storytelling that I could definitely see as I was playing it. And overall the character writing was pretty good. But there were still some small like issues and here and there. So let's get more deep into it. Yeah, before we begin, real quick though, if you guys do enjoy, please be sure to smash like, subscribe. I'd super appreciate it. Comment down below, letting me know if you guys agree, disagree with anything I say, and also join the Discord server if you want to come chat, hang out, and have a good time. And apart from that, let's just do it. The first thing that I want to talk about, obviously, is the story. I really overall quite enjoyed the story. I think the character writing was for the most part fantastic. I think they did an amazing job at writing Cerydra and Hysilens and giving their characters lots of development, and I respect a lot of the choices that they made. I think Ligus was also a really good villain. They did a great job at making him very annoying and very hateable while still making me kind of understand his reasoning and his motivations for doing what he was doing. But yeah, with Cerydra specifically, I really liked how they actually made her a tyrant. They introduced her as a very ruthless kind of leader tyrant character throughout the previous and previous story quests. They implied heavily that she was not very liked by a lot of people because of how ruthless she was, and they did not really they didn't shy away at showing us that. So I respect the hell out of it. I think they did an amazing job with her character of showing how she was willing to make those very morally, questionable decisions. Like, she literally gifted us a dead body upon arrival. And obviously a lot of people really hated her because she was a tyrant, but they still allowed us to understand her point of view, sympathize with her motivations, and, obviously her entire reasoning at the end for wanting to help Hysilens be able to live a bit more of a peaceful life, find her true, home, I guess, was also really sweet and just very well executed as a whole. Amazing. Hysilens, her backstory was also really well done. Hysilens went from a character who I really did not give any shits about, apart from her having a pretty design, to I really felt for her. I think she had a bit of a bittersweet ending, which was, for me, I actually quite like, because I like it when stories don't always have like super happy endings. I think overall 3.5 had that feeling to it in general, especially because it had a cliffhanger, so we also didn't get the full conclusion yet. It's all still building up, but yeah, Hysilens, fantastic. She was amazing, very sad, and her story, was very well intertwined with Cerydra's, and I think they also balanced each other out very well, so amazing job with Cerydra and Hysilens. Ligus was also a fantastic villain. Like I said, I think they did a fantastic job at making me want to punch his face. Punch his lights out at any given moment. But then I was also very surprised when they finally revealed his true motivations of how he was, the first genius, and that he also created Nous, and then now he thought there was a mistake, so he wanted to get rid of Nous, so, obviously. Very frustrating situation, and I don't agree with all of the things he's trying to do to create an a Lord Ravager to destroy Nous, but at the same time, I can kind of sympathize with the idea of him making this mistake that he thought was good and realizing that it actually was, something that ended up limiting his true freedom in the end. So, huge lore drop, by the way, as well. That's a huge lore drop for the overarching Eon story that we have been getting in Starrail thus far, so pretty solid. Another thing I really liked was they showed the old Chrysos heirs. The Chrysos heirs, some of them that we have met already before, specifically Agekk. I think it was really cool to see another side to her in the story, where we only really got to witness Agekk before in our cycle, when she had already been at her wit's end, almost on the verge of losing all of her humanity. So it was actually it offered a really nice insight into who she is as a person, being able to witness the other Chrysos heirs in this period of time where they were younger, a lot more, you know, alive, and weren't as jaded from all of the stuff they had to endure throughout the centuries. So I really, really liked that way of them showing that. And I'm glad that they did, especially because they have this whole kind of like time loop situation going on. So I think it's important that they do showcase these different sides to the characters within the different, you know, time periods, since they have the opportunity to do so. So solid, solid. We didn't really get too much about Evernight. She just kind of appeared, you know, had a little thing in it. I'm very curious to see where they're going to take that in the future. Don't have too much to say since she did not play too big of a prominent role. I think with Cyrene, we got some, you know, cool interactions. Again, we didn't really get too much character building for Cyrene. It was definitely really nice to see her determination with waiting for us and wanting to help us with the, you know, Dormammu have come to bargain type angle that we had at the end. But again, I think we're going to get a lot more Cyrene character development and lore in some of the future updates. So looking forward to that. And yeah, NPCs, pretty well done. Cerydra's lieutenants, I think they did a good job at making us kind of feel for them. The things that they represented and how, like, when we saw them at the end and seeing the different sides, the conflicts even within Cerydra's kind of most loyal followers, it was a really good way for them to show the full impact of Cerydra's actions on the general populace, because each of the characters kind of represented different parts of humanity, I think. So it was a very good idea for them to introduce those NPCs, and yeah, they introduced them, they killed them off, but they played the role that they needed to play, which was to show us the different reactions to what Cerydra did. So pretty solid there as well. Also rest in peace, Fagusa, the Titan, who literally got the NPC model and got off-screened. Unlucky. I guess not every Titan can get their full glory. Hysilens stole the glory from Fagusa, guys, unfortunately. My only issue with the character writing was in particular with Ligus. I think Ligus was a bit too repetitive. Like, he repeated himself way too many times. He was so obsessed with that allegory of the cave, I swear to God. I needed him to shut up about the cave for 2 seconds, but he would not. He would not, okay? Like, I understand when games and stories want to kind of retell certain things and give us new information every time they retell it. That is a pretty effective storytelling method, but not when you do it that many times. Like, Ligus probably needed to bring up the allegory of the cave twice. And then that would have been enough to really, you know, I think, send home the impact of what he was trying to say. He did not. He said it way more than twice, okay? So bro needed to shut up a bit more. But okay, that's my only complaint, really, with the character writing. And also, this one thing he did where he would always bring up a story, because he was basically the character that's kind of trying to do storytelling through narration, right? Because he's narrating a story to us. But I swear to God, the number of times he would bring something up only to say, actually, I'm not going to tell you the full story now. I'm just going to tell you again later. Don't do that. Don't do that. You do not need the character to directly, like, tease you and say, okay, I'm going to tell you this part of the story, but for the rest, I'm going to make you wait. He directly says that. And it's just like, you don't need to do that. That just makes it even more annoying as a player. Because then it's like you're having the character literally telling you like, oh, I could tell you everything, but I'm not going to. Okay, anyway, sorry. Those are my only 2 complaints about the character writing in this patch for the most part. And yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about the pacing just now with Ligus's parts, I guess. But pacing was overall pretty good, I think. There weren't really many spots where I felt like they needed to kind of like hurry things up too much, apart from, again, some of the Ligus parts. But apart from that, it was, yeah, pretty good. I felt pretty engaged throughout the entire story. I didn't feel like they were repeating themselves too much apart from Ligus. And I think they did a solid job at telling us a story through a non-linear narration, you know, like kind of bouncing between memories, the past, the present, with Hysilens, Cerydra, and then also, you know, the whole like Cyrene stuff too. You know, solid job. They did a good job at making it not too confusing while still making you think a little bit about, oh, like, is this the past or the present? Like, what's going on? And then you figure it out once they tell you a bit more, and then it's like, it feels good. So yeah, lore drops, you know, again, huge lore drops with Ligus specifically. I already talked about them just now, so very cool. We obviously got pretty big lore drops with March as well, and I think we're definitely going to see more with Cyrene. And so yeah, I think the really massive lore drops apart from Ligus are going to be kind of waiting for the next patch. So we'll just wait for those. We'll wait for that to come up later. And okay, I have a pretty good example of a narrator in a story that tells stories during events, but it's kind of out of left field. Raymond Reddington from The Blacklist always told stories while he's with people, but he always got to the point within the same storytelling. Oh, I haven't seen The Blacklist, but I trust you. Ligus as a whole, he's a very interesting character. Loves to yap. Nothing wrong with yapping. He just needs to not yap and repeat himself 10 times. So that's all. Story overall, again, pretty solid, apart from some of my like small issues with Ligus. So yeah, presentation I think was honestly a lot better than some of the previous patches. I don't know about comparing it to 3.4 because I'm just very biased towards 3.4 if I'm being completely honest, but I could definitely tell that in 3.5 there was basically no black screens. There was, I think, I can only remember one in particular, and it was in a moment that made sense for there to be black screen, and they definitely were putting in a lot more effort to do more camera angles. There were so many lines of dialogue where you're talking to characters, where they were moving more, they were having more expressions, like micro adjustments to their models, things like that. And also having the camera angle slowly like pan between scenes here and there. I remember the specific moment I noticed this was when we were talking with Cerydra on the top of the hill after, I think, the council meeting, when you could very clearly see them, panning to the background, panning to her, all those different things. So I think overall, I noticed it. I noticed that they were trying to do more of this kind of like these visually interesting cinematic moments. So I appreciate that, and I hope that they keep that up and do even more, because it's a very good step in the right direction. And I do think that they overall broke up the talking dialogue better too, because they kind of spread out the cutscenes a bit more. They didn't have all of the cutscenes at the very end. I think they had one at the beginning. They had a lot of CGs in the middle, and the CGs were also more spread out too. And there were also a lot more CGs as well. There were a lot of different CGs that they gave us, and each of the CGs themselves were also animated, and they had little animations to them. There's the different levels. There's for example, the Hysilens bath one. We always gotta talk about the Hysilens bath CG, okay? Where you had the water, it's like, it's an art, but then you have the water kind of swirling around her, which adds a little bit of visual interest. I know they've been doing this for like quite a few patches, but I really noticed it in this one in particular. So hopefully they keep that up. They also had the Cyrene CG with like the hand holding near the latter half of the story, where they kind of did a semi animation for that CG, which was also, I think, a pretty solid way for them to add even more visual interest and CG/cinematic like moments without necessarily having the entire cutscene. So yeah, presentation overall was solid. Very solid. They are definitely making efforts to improve it, and I am looking forward to hopefully them improving it even further for the future patches. And yeah, the gameplay, honestly, there wasn't much gameplay. It was, honestly, the entire thing was very visual novel style. It was a visual novel with a boss fight, essentially. So I personally don't mind this style. I like it when I can just focus on the story without being forced to explore a map, for example, or fight random mobs. So I have no issues with that, because for me, it actually kind of takes me out of the story when I have to do that. And it doesn't feel like they're just forcing me to do like busy gameplay stuff in the middle. So I have no complaints. I know some people were complaining about how there wasn't enough of the gameplay because it was just, visual novel. But again, I've said my opinion on it. If you guys disagree with me, let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you guys think it could be like better improved, or maybe there's a nice middle ground they could have where they don't completely cut out the gameplay, but then it's still, not too, it doesn't feel like I'm being forced to do stuff. I don't know. Let me know. And yeah, I think another thing that also did a really good job at making the story feel more like it was progressing throughout and not too static was there were also lots of new maps. I know the maps, they weren't anything too special apart from the underground and the, when you're inside the cave stuff near the latter half. I don't know how to describe it. Like that map was amazing when you're walking up to Hysilens who's trapped. But Like, that map was fantastic. You know, the map at the end when we are seeing everyone dead was also fantastic. When we're also in Hysilens' memory. They did a good job. They made different maps, so it felt like we were going through different parts. We were going through different parts of the story at any given time and not just repeating the same, you know, like walking through the same map over and over, you know? Yeah, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it, but I'm glad. I like it when they make these new maps and then it adds to the story because it's fresh. It's fresh. Even if they're just revamping an old one, such as in Hysilens' memory, I still think that it's a very effective way for them to make it feel like we're seeing something new. So, solid on that front. And the voice acting, of course, was amazing. Voice acting, I almost never have any complaints about the voice acting in Star Rail. So, amazing jobs by all the voice actors, specifically Ligus's voice actor. Holy shit. Like, here's the thing about Ligus, right? I hate him so much because I'm supposed to, but his voice actor actually sounds so good. So the entire time I listen to Ligus, I simultaneously want to punch his face, but also he sounds so hot. That's all. That's what Ligus does to me, okay? It is the most whiplash experience I will ever have. I think he's just lonely. He needs someone to talk to. Well, yeah, maybe he is lonely because everyone he talks to, he just talks about the cave nonstop. And yeah, my overall rating, I gave it a 7.5 at the end of the story. And honestly, I think I do still give it a 7.5. The reason for my rating being, I think, again, it's an intro patch. So the intro patches are never going to be as exciting as a climax patch, which is totally okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And again, there were lots of improvements. I was mostly praising 2.5 in this video. But the thing is, like the writing, like some of the writing for Ligus, especially the repetitiveness, really that needs to be gone, okay? That just needs to be gone, man. If they were able to cut down on some of Ligus's repetitiveness, I could give it a very easy 8, possibly 8.5. You know, I think, again, 3.5, super solid intro patch. Lots of improvements in the storytelling. Cut down on some of Ligus's extra cave allegories and just like absolute BM. And the writing would have been, I think, 10 times better, just like that small change. So yeah. Oh, also one last thing is I do also think this was a perfect patch for them to have split the story into a first half, second half. Imagine before we enter the final section, I think it was when we come back in, right? When we come back in to the cycles at around the exact halfway point of the story, right? Is like we get trapped by Ligus in limbo and then we finally return back to the cycle 1,000 years later. That could have been such a perfect place for them to have split it between the first half of 3.5 and then the second half of 3.5 for the story. I want Star Rail to do it so badly, especially because the Star Rail stories are so long. I think if they are able to split the stories into first half, second half, it will be a much, much better experience. And also make the patches overall more fun and exciting too, especially given the lack of events for the most part with a lot of the Star Rail patches as of late. But yeah, I think that's about it. That's about it for everything I wanted to cover about this review. Let me know in the comments below if you guys, again, agree, disagree, have any thoughts about anything I said. I'd love to hear them. And also, like, subscribe if you enjoyed, dislike if you didn't enjoy, and join the Discord server if you want to come chat, hang out, and have a good time. And apart from that, thank you so much for watching, YouTube. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!